Is mortgage loan an investment? We've all been there. We were thinking if it's a smart idea to buy a flat or a house. Then there is usually a lot of people who are more than happy to help us to sign a mortgage loan and provide it to us. On the other hand, if we are living in the house or flat, the question is really using mortgage loan to buy own accommodation an investment? That's something that we will discuss in following video. So if someone tells you that mortgage loan is really an investment, they are not wrong, they just forgot to tell you that it's an investment for bank. In case we buy our own accommodation, it's usually not generating money for us, but it's rather generating money for the loan providing company, which in this case is surprisingly bank. But is there anything that we can do about it? That's something we will discuss further in this video. So here it's just too important to realize that the bank is really the one who is getting money out of the mortgage loan. But what can we really do about it? That's a question here. So does it mean we shouldn't buy a flat or house? Not at all. It actually means that we have to think twice before using mortgage loan. Because one day we will be all old, and during the time it may be difficult for us without earning power to actually be able to afford rent. So the only way forward is to study, gain experience, and be better and better piece by piece every day. Because that's only way how to make sure we are able to use the mortgage loan the most efficient way possible. But let's see how inflation and mortgage loan works together in the following video. Let's start with brief explanation how the mortgage loan works. Please do not be scared by some Czech captions here. As I'm from Czech Republic, I'll be using the local data to explain some basics about the mortgage loan, but still the basic principles apply. So let's start with a brief explanation. You want to buy a house or a flat. You don't have sufficient amount of money, so you decide to take a mortgage loan. So you go to the bank and you tell the bank that you want to take mortgage loan. So they say okay. And now what is good to do before you go into the bank? Because let's just briefly explain how does it work. So in case of bank, they have some deposit, but they can't use deposits to cover mortgage loan because it's too risky, because deposits itself are short term, but on the other hand, the mortgage loan is long term. So the bank wants to secure itself to make sure that the interest rate charge on the money that are borrowed to you or that you will borrow and the bank will lend you are actually with fixed interest rate. And because the bank usually do not have directly the money, so they simply go into the financial market and use product which is called interest rate swap. Swap in general is type of contract when two entities exchange some benefits. So one entity has some benefit and the other entity has some benefit, and through the swap contract they will just change them. So here they can be, for example, changing the short-term interest rate and long-term interest rate. And the current cost of these interest rate swap can be found on patria.cz. And here if we just check it, we would see that 5-year interest rate swap cost 3.52%. The price of interest rate swap is expressed in percent. Then in case of 7 years interest rate swap, the cost is 3.50, And similarly, for 10-year long interest rate swap, the cost is 353. So what can this information provide us with? Simply said, the first thing, it's showing us the sentiment of the market. So what market thinks will be interest rates within 5 years, 7 years and 10 years. This can help us in two ways. The first, we will get some idea what is the base rate for the bank, and so if the bank charges us, let's say 1% extra, then we know if it's 3.5, then something reasonable or the best possible would be, for example, 4.5. So it will simply give us some idea what will be the real interest rate. And the second benefit is, if we want to take a mortgage loan, we can see that market thinks that, for example, in 3 years or 5 years, the interest rate would be lower. So then we will set fixation period shorter, and then we will use the lower interest rate after that. Maybe note for our foreign colleagues and friends, in case of Czech Republic, usually the interest rate is not the same throughout full mortgage loan duration, which is usually 30 years. So the most common fixed period for us is 5, 7 and 10 years. And after that there is a negotiation with the bank and new interest rate is set. And with that said, let's quickly go over the benefits or why the mortgage loan is one of the best loans to be used. It's because in general, from the bank point of view, the real estate, which means your house or flat, is insured and you are paying the insurance, so it's very safe for the bank or loan provider. Then in many cases it's government supported, which means, for example, in case of Czech Republic, the government allows you to get some tax benefit from paid interest rate. Then the accommodation is just a basic human need, so it's unlikely that the prices of accommodation would be sharply falling, because everybody needs to live somewhere and the amount of space on earth is limited. Now, in case of Czech Republic or even other post-communistic countries, it's usually seen as a symbol status, which means if you own a flat or a house, it will increase your social status. So people are trying to do it. And what is dangerous, and that's why actually the bank usually makes money on the mortgage loan, is that after some fixed period, the interest rate will change. So they can then charge you more and get their money back in case inflation depreciated them. And with that said, let's jump on a mortgage loan and inflation and explanation how actually the mortgage loan is paid off and why inflation may help you. On this table, we will at first explain how the calculations are done, and then we will explain why inflation is actually helping you to pay off the mortgage loan, and why the biggest benefit out of mortgage loan can get the people who really don't need the mortgage loan, which means they can pay it off anytime they want. But let's start with describing the basics. So here in the gray area we have year, then interest rate for a given year, then inflation rate and earning tax. In case of Czech Republic it's 15%. Please note that we are starting from year 0 to make our calculations easier, which means that the 29th year is like a 30th, and then in 30th year everything is fully paid off. Then we have here this blue zone, and this blue zone is simply showing to you how the principal is being paid off and then how inflation depreciates the value of remaining principal. So now what's the magic here? So you borrowed 5 million Czech crowns and you bought a house or flat. Now the magic about the house or flat is that it's one of the basic needs and there is limited space on earth, so they are usually growing on price with inflation. The first reason for their growing price is its rare resource, limited resource, and another reason is depreciation of money caused by creation of new money. So you bought for these 5 million Czech crowns, and now the value or the price of the house or flat tends to grow. On the other hand, the value of this borrowed money is going to be depreciated by inflation, because inflation is decreasing the buying power of the money, and it's always done in a way that this is at the beginning of the year and this is at the end of the year. And if we have 2% inflation, then after a year 5 million are depreciated into 4,901,000 or 902 if we round it. So what does it mean? It means that in nominal expression you still have this amount of money. So if you would just take them and calculate them, you will still have this amount of money. But because prices increased, you can buy with 5 million just something worth of 4,902,000. So that's the magic of inflation. And because the flat or house that you bought is growing on value, but you are paying the money back to the bank over 30 years, then the remaining principal, which is yet to be paid, is nicely depreciated by inflation. And this is actually helping you to pay off the mortgage loan faster, because your money are invested into something which grows in value, but someone else's money, in this case banks, are depreciating, because until they get all of them back, they are already depreciated a lot by inflation. Now we have this red part, which represents the principal payment, interest payment, and then total payment, which is principal together with interest. Then here we have running totals of total interest paid and total principal paid. Here we just divided the total payment by 12 to get monthly payments. Here we are comparing if there is a change in case of interest rate, what is the change of monthly payment or monthly installment. Here it may happen, and that's inside these red columns or red cells, that when the interest rate is increased a lot, you will start paying more on interest payment than to pay off the principal. Which means you will pay more on interest, but your principal will decrease slower. So it's just to show you the effect when bank changes the interest rate. And then here in this purple or blue zone, we have effect of running total of the tax return, because in case of Czech Republic you can apply for tax return. And here is then total interest paid, including the tax return. So you can see that is different. Here we paid 2,938,000, but thanks to tax return we really paid just 2.5 million, which means we saved, thanks to tax relief, almost 500,000. But you can imagine this tax return also as a change of effective tax rate, or sorry, not tax rate, but effective interest rate of the mortgage loan. And this means that normally when the interest rate of mortgage loan was 2%, here effectively, thanks to the tax return, it's just 1.7. Or if it was 5, it's really just 4.25. So you can also imagine this discount in this way, like decreasing the interest rate. And that's pretty much it. That's all the magic. So now let's discuss the question why the biggest benefit out of the mortgage loan will get people who don't need it. So as I explained, at least in case of Czech Republic, the interest rate is fixated just for some time. And the average inflation, which is announced by the Czech National Bank, should be 2. In reality, in the last 23 years, it's rather 3. But what is important to realize that this is nominal interest rate. The real interest rate is interest rate minus inflation. So here, if inflation is 2% and interest is 2%, then you are really charged 0% in real explanation. So what does it mean? It means that you borrowed 5 million. These 5 million are then depreciated by inflation, but your house or flat that you bought is appreciated by 2% approximately. Usually it's more. So you really made money on it. So that's the magic of inflation. And now, if you are not able to pay off the mortgage loan when the bank offers you different interest rate, then that's where you will start getting into problems, because in such case, here the bank was very benevolent, or the money were very cheap, expressed as interest rate. But here, when the Czech National Bank increased the interest rate and the bank gave you much higher interest rate, which changed the monthly payment from 18,000 into nearly 25,000, which is 34% increase. So in case you can't pay immediately the remaining principal, then here the bank will start making its money back. And that's the danger, because in the end, usually the average interest rate would be like 4-5%, and the average inflation is usually 2-3%, which means the bank will definitely make some money. And for the bank, the mortgage loan is amazing because it's long term and it's also very secure. So that's it. That's the reason how it works and how you can effectively use the mortgage loan and with help of inflation actually get more worthier. So that's it.